This video is going to have a look at calculating the missing side of a triangle using trigonometry. By the end of the video, the aim is that you can calculate the missing side of a right-angled triangle using a trigonometric ratio. So we can use trigonometry to calculate the missing side of a right-angled triangle if we have both of the following. So the first item we need is we need an angle. If we don't have an angle and we wanting to calculate the side of a triangle, we cannot use trigonometry. The second item we need is we need one of the sides. It doesn't matter which other side it is, we just need an angle and one of the sides to be able to calculate the missing length of another side of a right angle triangle. So to be able to calculate the missing side of a triangle, you need to follow the following 6 steps. The first step is going to be label the sides of the triangle, or label the sides that we have information for. And we label that with opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse, depending on which side it is. Step 2 is decide whether we're going to use sine, cos, or tan, and that's going to be based on the information you have in the question. Step 3, write the formula. Step 4, substitute the values into the formula from the question. Step 5, rearrange and solve the equation to find out what that missing side is. And step 6 is going to be to write the answer, making sure we include the measurement units. If we don't have measurement units in the question, just write the word units as your unit measurement. So let's have a look at some examples of how we can apply these 6 steps to be able to calculate the missing side of a triangle. So in our example, we have a right angled triangle. We have an angle of 35 degrees. We have a hypotenuse of 6 centimeters. And we want to calculate our missing A length. So going through and applying the 6 steps, the first step is going to be label the sides. So starting with my specified angle of 35, and I know I've got the opposite side, which is the side I'm trying to find out, my A side, and I've also got the hypotenuse. So I've labeled the sides that I have information for. Step 2 is decide whether I'm going to use sine, cos, or tan. Now, because I have information for the opposite and the hypotenuse side, I'm going to use sine as my trigonometric ratio to solve this question. So step 3, write the formula. So sine of an angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. Step 4, substitute in the values from the question. So sine of 35 degrees is going to equal 2a over 6. So I'm substituting in my a for my opposite side and 6 for my hypotenuse side. So now that I've substituted in the values from the question, I can go ahead and complete step 5, which is to rearrange and solve the equation. So to get a by itself, at the moment it's a divided by 6. So I want to do the opposite of divide by 6, which is multiply by 6. So multiply both sides by 6. So that means 6 times sine 35 is equal to A. So now I can calculate my answer and write the units of measurement. So in my calculator, I'll put in 6 times sine 35, hit the equals button, and A is equal to 3.441 centimeters. So my missing A side is equal to 3.441 centimeters. Now remembering a quick common sense check we can do, the hypotenuse side should be the longest side of the triangle. So if I'm finding an opposite or an adjacent side, then it needs to be smaller than the hypotenuse, which in this case 3.4 is smaller than 6. So that check is completed. So that's an example of how we can find the missing side of a triangle using trigonometry. So let's continue and have a look at a few more examples. Example 2. I want to find the value of f based on the information we have in our right angle triangle. So going through and applying the steps, step 1 is to label the sides. So looking at my specified angle of 32 degrees, and I know that I have got my adjacent side, so my side next to that angle of 32 degrees, and that is my f side that I'm trying to find. And I've also got the hypotenuse side of 0.346 centimeters. So now that I've labeled the sides that I have information for, step 2 is going to be decide whether we're going to use sine, cos, or tan. Now, because I have information for adjacent and hypotenuse, I'm going to use the cos ratio. So now that I know that I'm using cos, I can go ahead. Step 3, write the formula. So cos of an angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So substitute in the values from the question. Adjacent is going to be f. Hypotenuse is going to be 0.346. So cos of 32 degrees is going to equal f over 0.346. So step 5, to rearrange and solve the equation, I need to multiply both sides by 0.346. So f equals 0.346 times cos 32. Putting that into your calculator, the final answer is going to be 0.293 centimeters. So that's an example of how we can calculate a missing side using trigonometry. Let's go ahead and look at example 3. So example 3, I want to find the value of P based on the information in the right angle triangle. So step 1, label the sides. This time I have got the opposite side, which is 120, and the adjacent side, which is the missing side P value that I'm trying to find. Step 2, decide whether we're going to use sine, cos, or tan. We've got opposite and adjacent. I've got no hypotenuse, so I'm going to use tan. So going through the rest of my steps, step 3 is going to be write the formula. So tan of an angle equals opposite over adjacent. Substitute in the values from the question. Tan of 5 is going to equal 120 over P. So rearranging it, I need to start off by multiplying both sides by P. So that leaves me with P times tan of 5 is equal to 120. I still haven't got P by itself this time. So what I need to do is divide both sides by tan 5. So P is going to equal 120 divided by tan 5. And this is the value that I can enter into the calculator. So once I've entered that into the calculator, I can write my answer. So P is going to equal to 1,371.606 meters. So moving ahead and looking at example 4. We want to find the value of M based on the information in the question. So going through step 1, label my sides. So looking at 22 degrees as my specified angle, I have got my adjacent side and I've got my hypotenuse side. So step 2, decide whether I'm going to use sine, cos, or tan. Adjacent and hypotenuse, I'm going to use cos. So step 3, write the formula for cos. So that is going to be cos of the angle is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Substituting in my values, adjacent is 17.4, hypotenuse is M. So cos of 22 degrees is equal to 17.4 divided by M. So taking the value of M, which is in my denominator, multiplying it by both sides. So M times cos 22 is going to equal to 17.4. Since I still don't have M by itself yet, I need to go ahead and divide both sides now by cos 22. So M is going to equal to 17.4 divided by cos 22. So that's what I can put into my calculator to get my final answer. So M is going to equal to 18.77 centimeters. So there are some examples of how we can use the trigonometric ratios to calculate a missing side. So let's have a look at how that would apply to a word question. In example 5, Ben sets out on a bushwalking expedition. Using a compass, he sets off on a course that's 70 degrees northeast and traveled a distance of 5 kilometers from his base camp. We want to calculate how far east he has traveled. So when we have a word question, before we do any calculations, if one's not provided, we need to draw a diagram. So to draw a diagram, we need to go back and have a look at the question and add in pieces of information piece by piece. So we know Ben is setting out on a walking expedition from a starting point. So we're going to mark in our starting point. And we know that he is traveling northeast. So we can mark in north as our starting point and then mark in northeast. and he has traveled 5 kilometers. So our solid blue line is the path that Ben has walked 5 kilometers northeast. We also know that Ben was northeast by 70 degrees. So we can add in 70 degrees northeast. So between the north and the northeast line is going to equal 70 degrees. And then I can add in another line to form a right angled triangle. And what I'm trying to find out is this value of this line, which I'm going to call X. How far east has Ben traveled? So now that I have a diagram with a triangle, what I can do is go ahead and complete my calculations. So the first step I'm going to do is label the sides. So having a look at my 70 degrees, I've got a side that is going to be opposite that 70 degree angle, and I've got a hypotenuse side. So labeling the sides, I've got opposite and hypotenuse. So now I can decide whether I'm going to use sine, cos, or tan. Opposite and hypotenuse means I'm going to use sine. So next step, write the formula. So sine of the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. Substituting in my values, my opposite side is x, my hypotenuse side is 5. So sine of 70 degrees is equal to x over 5. Next step is to rearrange and solve the equation. So taking my denominator value of 5, multiplying both sides by 5. So 5 times sine of 70 is equal to x. I can put that into my calculator and get an answer of 4.7 kilometers. So my x value is 4.7 kilometers, which means that Ben has traveled 4.7 kilometers north. And because it's a word question, I need to answer my question in words as well. So Benjamin traveled 4.7 kilometers east from his starting point. So that's an example of how we can apply our knowledge of how to find a missing side to a word question for trigonometry.